You're probably a caregiver if you're listening to this podcast. But this is also a really great podcast for you to share with people who are looking to give you gifts. And
Yeah.
if you listen to this podcast, you'll understand why. In this episode, we're talking about how to think outside the box and give gifts to caregivers that they'll actually use.
Yes, that's what we want.
Isn't that a great idea?
And there's a reason why we're laughing with this.
We have 5 categories of gifts. Sue, you ready to get started?
I am. Welcome. We're Sue Ryan
And Nancy Treaster.
This podcast brings our years of experience in a variety of family caregiving roles to prepare you to navigate your caregiving journey.
We're sharing our personal experiences, not medical advice. And because it's our passion to support you on your journey, we believe no topic is off limits. Let's get started.
Being a caregiver is demanding. Right from the minute we get the diagnosis, it becomes 24/7. And because we're so focused on our care receiver, it's reasonable that we let go of things that are important to us as well. And we kind of lose our sense of self. And one of the first things we give up are some of those things that are the most meaningful for us to do, like our hobbies or our interests and other things that we're really connected with. So when it comes time to getting gifts, one of the things that's so helpful is to be very intentional about things that are going to be comforting. They're going to be supportive. They're things we can use. They're things that will reconnect us with our sense of self, our hobbies, our interests, our passions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important for us to also understand when we're thinking about gifts, we usually focus on that primary caregiver in the home. And often now we have multiple generations in the home. So, for example, those teenage children come home after school instead of participating in some of the school activities so they can be helping out with grandmama and grandpapa. And so one of the things when we're thinking about gift giving is also including other generational support that are there in the home as well. So, Nancy, are you ready to get going with tip 1?
I am. Tip 1, Sue, is the gift of time. And this is probably the most valuable gift you can give a caregiver.
It sure is.
And, the gift of time gives the caregiver an opportunity to have some me time.
Yeah.
And when we say the gift of time, what we mean is that someone is sharing time with the care receiver so that the caregiver can go do something that they want to do. Now, we have a really good worksheet on our website. We will also put a link to it in the show notes that you can use as a caregiver to think through what you would do if you had the gift of time. And if you're a gift giver, you can sit with the caregiver and say, let's go through and fill this worksheet out so we can all understand what it is you would do with the gift of time. Now, it's a fairly straightforward worksheet. Down one side, you put increments of time. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, half a day, full day, an evening, all weekend. What are the increments? Down the other side, you think through what brings the caregiver joy.
Yeah.
What would you do if you had an hour? What would you do if you had a half a day? What would you do if you had a weekend or an evening? If you had 20 minutes, Sue and I like to suggest might bring you joy is to listen to a Sue and Nancy podcast. But
sure, why not?
May not be on your list, but anyway. Sit down, take some time to think ahead, because when you get the gift of time, and this works even if it's not someone giving you an hour, if you have 10 minutes, this gives you an opportunity to think. You don't have to come up with what you're going to do with that 10 minutes. You've already written it down and you can just go, look, what are the things I'd like to do if I had 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And then you can run and go actually take advantage of the time you've got. All right, so let's start with the gift of time was tip 1, and that rolls into tip 2 as well.
Tip 2 is when you're giving that gift of time, what are some of the things that you can give the caregiver that will reconnect them with their interests, their hobbies, their sense of self? And Nancy and I put together a representative list, certainly not an extensive list, but things that you can be gifting that go with the gift of time. For example, tickets for movies, theater, sports events, online fitness class subscriptions, favorite sport lessons, and then a session or more to actually use what you learn in the lesson. Classes related to your hobbies, like cooking or crafting or woodworking or things like that. And then a spa day or a massage or a mani-pedi certificate. One of the examples that I have that was just so incredibly thoughtful is some of my husband's buddies called one morning and they said, "Hey, we want to take Jack out for breakfast tomorrow." I said, "That's great. We're going to pick him up at 9 a.m." Well, that's great. And we have an appointment for you at 9:15 to get a mani and pedi, and we're bringing you the gift certificate. And it was like, wow, because I had completely taken anything like that way off of my list. So it was a gift that they had identified they were going to care for him and then have me do something that was intentionally caring for me. Meant a whole lot to me.
Yeah,
So,
that's a wonderful story. And, that's the connection that people forget or don't know, maybe is the right thing to do. They think they're giving you a good gift to help you have some me time. I got a spa certificate as well at some point in my caregiving journey, but no gift of time to go with it. And I never used it. So what we're talking about in this episode is how to be intentional about giving gifts to a caregiver so they will use them.
yes.
Because it never felt like a priority for me to find time to go to the spa. And caregivers don't necessarily think about their own things for themselves as high priority. And so if you just give me a spa gift certificate, it's probably not going to make the priority list. And if you give me the gift of time to go with the spa gift certificate, like Sue's, I love the fact that they even went as far as to make the appointment for you, Sue. That was awesome.
Yeah, there
That's
was
the
no
way to
backing out of that one.
That's the way to
Yeah.
give the gift.
Nancy, I think another point that's really important here is that one of the reasons also that a caregiver will get a gift and not use it is they have what's called caregiver guilt.
Yes.
And if you give them a gift and they feel like, oh, I just would feel so guilty going and treating myself when my loved one
Yes.
can't. When
Yes.
we connect the gift of time with the actual gift, it removes that guilt. We shouldn't have guilt in the first place. We should be doing it, but it's easier for us to actually use something that was given a gift with such great thoughtfulness behind it. And like you had said, if your spa day had been connected to, we're going to watch your husband while you go to the spa day, then you would have felt better about actually using the gift.
Yes, you're exactly right. Tip 3 is practical gifts. These are gifts that take something off the plate of the caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
Taking them out to a meal, care receiver and the caregiver. Providing a home cooked meal and taking it to their home. Hiring a cleaning service so they don't have to clean their house. If they've got children, offering child pickup and child drop off. If they take their care receiver to adult daycare, care receiver pickup and drop off. Babysitting if they have children. Pet sitting if they have pets. Taking the dog on a walk. Things that we can do that help, and you'll think of things as well based on the situation your caregiver that you're trying to give a gift to is in. What are things you could do to take something off their plate so they don't have to do it? Tip 4 is really taking tip 3 to the next level.
Yeah.
And that is coordinating people who help deliver practical gifts. So maybe you don't want to just deliver one home-cooked meal. You'd like to deliver a home-cooked meal once a week for a month. You can coordinate who's going to deliver home-cooked meals each week. You can do that through a meal train. There's meal train apps, mealtrain.com. You can just do it through a Google Calendar. Of course, you can do it on a piece of paper. Nothing requires you to have a technology, but there are lots of apps out there.
Yeah.
Caringbridge.com. You can set up a caring bridge for someone, and it's a place where you can coordinate care, meal delivery, but also child pickup and drop off or pet sitting. Care can be coordinated for the family that could use the help. So Tip 4 is really about coordinating, creating recurring practical gifts.
Tip 5 is thoughtful gestures, things that are meaningful to the caregiver. They don't have to cost anything. They're just things that mean a lot to them. For example, a quick phone call. Hey, thinking of you. Grandchildren, sending a little text. Love you, thinking of you. Handwritten note. Oh my gracious glory. Getting a little handwritten note from someone that says, I'm thinking of you, I care for you. One that's really fabulous is these digital photo frames where when we're caregivers, we're choosing not to go to some of the family events. And when the family has an event, they upload the pictures into the digital photo album. And even while the event is still going on, you can get the photos
I love
and you can
that.
add those. Yeah. So that's a really good one. One that was really so touching to me is my husband was a Mass everyday Catholic from the womb. And I made sure until he could no longer get to church that I got him to church every single day. And one day a friend called and said, I'm going to take Jack to church tomorrow and you can join us or you can stay home. What I notice at church is you're so focused on caring for Jack that you're not focused on the experience of church for yourself. And that just meant so very much to me because I really hadn't. I was there, but I wasn't really fully present. So that was a very, very, very thoughtful gift.
And, my mother had a similar experience. She really was missing. She was doing church online when they could
Yeah.
no longer leave the house, but she was really missing her Sunday school class and the church experience. And so getting a caregiver to come so she could go to church was really valuable to her.
Mhm. Another thing is pampering items or special items that there are things that we really like and to get those. So for example, I'll share my pampering gift.
Sue is a popcorn freak, everyone, in case you don't know that she is.
I truly am. Popcorn, popcorn anytime. And Nancy, you've got something that you love getting gifts of.
So I like scented candles. I like scented lotions. My younger son and his girlfriend live in St. Louis, and they send me these scented soaps, which are made in St. Louis, and you can also buy them online. They are awesome. I literally love these. I use these all the time.
You
And they're
probably
also
better put
good.
them in the show notes.
Yeah, I will put them in the show notes. As a matter of fact, I've given them to Sue. She can vouch for them. They're fabulous.
I can vouch for them. She's got me hooked on them too.
Exactly. So things like that. If you're the caregiver you're giving gifts to is the kind of person who likes that kind of thing, I mean, it's just something you don't typically buy for yourself.
Yeah, and that's
awesome.
what it is. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily get for yourself and that you really enjoy. And when somebody gives it to you, you know that they've been very intentional about something that really
Exactly.
matters to you. It just, even that part of it means so much. So yeah, so these are just ideas of different things that you can do that are very meaningful. Before we summarize, one more thing. You've heard from both of us that we've received gifts we haven't used. If you get a gift, use it, even if it doesn't come with the gift of time. If it doesn't come with the gift of time, get somebody to give you the gift of time so you can actually use it. And when you use it, enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it.
Yes.
Your care receiver is going to be taken care of. These are things to help you get some time to reconnect with yourself, with your identity, and feel good about yourself. Use them.
Yes. It's so important. And it's so easy to carve off the self-care. And if you get gifts that help you care for yourself, please take advantage of them. No kidding. Okay. So you ready to summarize?
Yes, ma'am.
First, hopefully you recognize today that the gift of time is huge for family caregivers. It's important also that we understand what the caregiver's situation is, what they like, what their hobbies are, so that we can give gifts that are meaningful and that they'll actually use, as we've said.
Yeah.
Today, we talked about 5 categories of gifts. Number 1, and the most valuable, the gift of time.
Mhm.
Number 2, gifts that help caregivers reconnect with their identity, their hobbies, their interests. Number 3, practical gifts that take things off their plate. Number 4, ways to make those practical gifts ongoing by coordinating help. And number 5, thoughtful gestures, things you can do that don't necessarily have to cost much money, but really send the right thought to the caregiver that you're thinking about them. If you have gifts that you think are good gifts for caregivers, please share them on our Facebook page, our Instagram page. The links are in the show notes for those. Any products that we talked about, Sue's popcorn at least, and my bar of soap will be in the show notes as well. And please take the opportunity to share this podcast if you're a caregiver with people you think are trying to figure out what gifts to give you so that you can get gifts that you'll actually use.
Absolutely. We're all on this journey together.
Yes, we are.